Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by the demands of modern life that you find yourself juggling a dozen different roles at once, yet somehow feeling like you're never quite enough? Between career pressures, family responsibilities, and the constant noise of social expectations, it's easy to feel stretched thin, emotionally drained, and disconnected from your own sense of purpose. In moments like these, we often search for answers: self-help books, wellness trends, or even retreats. But what if the most powerful solution has been quietly waiting for us, overlooked and often misunderstood for more than 2,000 years? Stoicism, an ancient philosophy born in a world far removed from our own, holds within it profound and practical wisdom that speaks directly to the experiences of women today. It's easy to dismiss Stoicism as cold, unfeeling, or strictly reserved for old men in togas, but that couldn't be further from the truth. At its heart, Stoicism is about cultivating inner strength, resilience, and clarity, not by suppressing emotion, but by understanding what we can control and releasing what we cannot. For women navigating a world that often expects us to be everything to everyone, these principles aren't just philosophical ideas, they're tools for reclaiming our energy, focus, and peace. This philosophy offers a way to navigate challenges with grace, to respond rather than react, and to build a life aligned with our deepest values, even when external circumstances feel chaotic. In this video, we're going to explore 25 Stoic frameworks specifically chosen because of how powerfully they resonate with women's lived experiences. These aren't abstract theories, they're actionable insights that can help you transform overwhelm into opportunity, fear into courage, and uncertainty into purposeful action. Whether you're dealing with stress at work, tensions in relationships, or the quiet pressure of societal expectations, these frameworks provide a roadmap for emotional resilience and lasting confidence. So settle in, open your mind, and get ready to discover how ancient wisdom can bring profound clarity and empowerment to your modern life. The first and perhaps most transformative framework Stoicism offers is the Dichotomy of Control. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a fundamental tool for reorganizing your mental energy and emotional priorities. At its core, this principle invites us to make a simple but profound distinction between two categories of things in our lives: those that are within our control and those that are not. What do we truly have power over? Our own judgments, our intentions, our values, and the actions we choose to take. Everything else, other people's opinions, external events, outcomes we hoped for, past mistakes, even the weather, fundamentally lies outside our control. Think about how often we, as women, exhaust ourselves trying to manage the uncontrollable. We worry endlessly about how a colleague perceives us. We agonize over a comment made by a relative. We stress about a future event that may never happen. Or we carry the weight of a family member's emotional state as if it were our sole responsibility to fix. This is where the dichotomy of control acts as a form of liberation. It asks us to consciously redirect our effort and attention inward, to the one place where we can actually affect change, our own choices and responses. Imagine you're preparing for a crucial presentation at work. You can control how thoroughly you prepare, the clarity of your slides, and the professionalism of your delivery. These are your actions, but you cannot control whether your boss is in a bad mood that day, if a key stakeholder gets called away, or if technical issues arise. The Stoic approach isn't to ignore potential problems, but to invest your energy wisely. Prepare impeccably for what you can influence, and then release your attachment to the rest. This shift doesn't promote apathy, it cultivates a powerful and focused serenity. You do your absolute best with your part, and you meet whatever happens externally with resilience rather than panic or self-blame. This framework is incredibly powerful for dismantling the habit of excessive emotional labor. So much of that mental load we carry consists of things we were never meant to hold. By regularly asking yourself, "Is this within my control?" you begin to set down burdens that were never yours to carry. It frees up an enormous amount of mental space that can be channeled into creative pursuits, deeper relationships, and actions that align with your true values. It's the difference between spending your day anxious about the weather forecast and simply choosing to carry an umbrella. Building on that foundation of focusing only on what we can control, we come to a framework that might initially seem counterintuitive but is ultimately one of the most liberating: Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. This is not about passive resignation or simply gritting your teeth and enduring hardship. Amor Fati is an active, courageous embrace of every single thing that happens to you: the good, the bad, the unexpected, and even the deeply painful. It's the decision to not just accept events, but to welcome them as essential threads in the tapestry of your life, believing that each one, especially the difficult ones, carries a hidden gift or a necessary lesson. Think of it this way: life is going to hand you a certain set of circumstances. Some will be beautiful and joyful, others will be incredibly challenging. We spend so much of our energy fighting against the things we didn't want to happen. We replay conversations, lament missed opportunities, and rage against unfair situations. Amor Fati asks us to stop fighting the current and instead learn how to swim with it, to see every event as raw material to be used in building our character and our resilience. The Stoics believed that obstacles aren't impediments to the path, they are the path. They are the very things that forge our strength and define our journey. For women who often face unique societal pressures and personal challenges, this mindset can be utterly transformative. Consider a career setback, like a promotion you worked tirelessly for, that goes to someone else. The typical reaction might be despair, self-doubt, or anger at the unfairness. Amor Fati invites a different response. It asks, what if this rejection is protecting me from a role that would have burned me out? What if it's creating space for an even better opportunity that I haven't yet seen? What skills did I gain in the process of trying that I now get to keep forever? This reframing doesn't erase the disappointment, but it alchemizes it into fuel for growth rather than a reason to shrink back. This philosophy shines in the realm of personal relationships and life's unexpected turns. Perhaps a relationship ends not because you failed, but because it had to end to make room for a deeper connection with yourself or a more aligned partner in the future. Maybe a health diagnosis forces you to slow down and reevaluate your priorities, leading to a more balanced and present way of living. Amor Fati is about finding the meaning in the mess and trusting that life isn't happening to you but for you. It's about looking at the broken pieces of a plan and seeing not just rubble, but the possibility to build something new and more authentic. Practicing Amor Fati starts with a simple but powerful shift in language. When something challenging occurs, instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" you learn to ask, "What is this teaching me? How is this preparing me for what's next?" It's about collecting those difficult experiences not as wounds, but as badges of honor that testify to your ability to endure and adapt. This isn't about pretending things are easy. It's about recognizing that your capacity to handle difficulty is far greater than you ever imagined, and that within every challenge lies an invitation to become a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate version of yourself. Now, let's explore a third framework that might sound surprising at first, but is perhaps one of the most practical tools for managing the anxiety that so often accompanies our deep love and care for others: negative visualization, or as the Stoics called it, premeditatio malorum. This is the practice of consciously and calmly imagining the potential loss of the things or people we hold most dear. Before you dismiss this as morbid or counterproductive, understand that this isn't about cultivating fear or expecting the worst to happen. It's a profound psychological exercise designed to do two powerful things: to shatter our taking things for granted, thereby unlocking a deep and present gratitude, and to inoculate us against the shock of adversity by making us emotionally and mentally prepared. Think about the nature of worry for a moment. As women, we often find our minds spiraling into anxious futures. What if my child gets sick? What if my partner loses their job? What if this project at work fails? This kind of worry is passive, draining, and rooted in fear. It hijacks our present moment and offers nothing in return but anxiety. Negative visualization is the intentional, active counterpart to that passive worry. It's a scheduled, controlled visit to that possibility, not as a terrified spectator, but as a calm strategist. You deliberately bring to mind the possibility of a difficulty, and you sit with it. You envision how you would handle it, what resources you would draw upon, and how you would eventually move forward. By doing this, you rob the potential disaster of its element of surprise, which is often what makes it so devastating. For example, take a moment to truly consider the people you love most in your life. Instead of pushing away the fleeting, terrifying thought of ever losing them, negative visualization asks you to gently invite that thought in just for a moment. Imagine what life would be like, the silence in the house, the empty chair at the table. This isn't to cause pain, but to accomplish something miraculous. The instant you pull your mind back to the present reality, that person is still there. The feeling that floods in isn't sadness. It's an overwhelming, visceral wave of gratitude and appreciation for having them right now. You suddenly notice the sound of their laughter in the next room, not as a distraction, but as a gift. This practice regularly resets our baseline from one of expectation to one of appreciation. This tool is incredibly effective in a professional context as well. Imagine you're leading a major project. Rather than just hoping for success, you proactively imagine what could go wrong. A key team member quits, the budget gets cut, a competitor launches a similar product. By visualizing these scenarios in a calm state, you begin to subconsciously problem solve. You might realize you need to cross-train your team on certain tasks or develop a contingency plan for the budget. When you walk into the project, you're no longer carrying the brittle hope that nothing goes wrong. You're carrying the quiet confidence that you've already considered what might and that you have the resilience to handle it. This doesn't attract failure, it builds a fortress of preparedness around your ambitions. The ultimate goal of premeditatio malorum is to transform our relationship with the future from one of fear to one of capability. It acknowledges that life is inherently uncertain and that things we value can be lost, but it affirms that we are not fragile, we are adaptable, we can endure. By regularly practicing this mental rehearsal, we build a deep-seated knowledge that we can handle hardship, which is the very foundation of true courage. It allows us to love deeply without being paralyzed by the fear of loss, to pursue ambitious goals without being crushed by the fear of failure, and to live fully in the present moment, keenly aware of the preciousness of all we have right now. This next framework is a powerful mental exercise that can instantly snap us out of the small struggles that so often consume our mental energy. It's called the view from above, and it involves consciously pulling our perspective back, way back, to view our lives from a vast cosmic vantage point. Imagine for a moment rising above your immediate surroundings, above your city, seeing the entire continent from space, and then further out, until the Earth itself is just a pale blue dot in the immense blackness of the universe. From this grand and silent perspective, all the tiny details of our daily lives, the worries that feel so enormous, and the social dramas that consume our attention, suddenly appear for what they truly are: small, temporary, and often insignificant. For women, who are frequently the emotional centers of their families and social circles, this practice is an invaluable tool for recalibration. We can become so entangled in the immediate stress of a messy kitchen, a critical email, a disagreement with a friend, or the pressure to meet a dozen different expectations before lunchtime. These things feel urgent and heavy in the moment, weighing us down and narrowing our focus until we can't see anything else. The view from above acts as a mental reset button. It doesn't ask us to dismiss our responsibilities or our feelings, but rather to place them in their proper context. When you view your life from this expansive standpoint, you are able to separate what is truly meaningful from what is merely noisy. Consider a day where everything seems to go wrong. You spill coffee on your shirt, you get stuck in traffic and are late for an appointment. Your child has a meltdown over a seemingly trivial issue, and you receive a snippy message from a colleague. In the thick of it, each event can feel like a major catastrophe, stacking up to create a sense of overwhelm and frustration. Now apply the view from above. From the silent expanse of the cosmos, does the coffee stain truly matter? Will the traffic jam be remembered in a week or even tomorrow? That difficult message is a tiny blip in the vast timeline of your career. This shift doesn't make your feelings invalid. It simply gives you the spaciousness to choose your response rather than being hijacked by a reaction. It allows you to conserve your emotional energy for the things that hold real weight, showing up with patience for your child, handling the colleague's message with professionalism, and recognizing that your worth is not defined by a chaotic morning. This practice is also profoundly effective for gaining clarity on your core values and long-term goals. When you look down at your life from above, you see the broader patterns and the direction you're heading. You might realize that you're spending an enormous amount of time and anxiety on pursuits that, in the grand scheme of your life, don't actually contribute to your happiness or fulfillment. Perhaps you're over-invested in curating a perfect image on social media, or you're exhausting yourself trying to please people whose opinions have no real impact on your well-being. The view from above cuts through that noise and asks the essential question: in 1 year, 5 years, or at the end of my life, what will I be proud of? What will I remember? The answer is almost never a perfectly clean house or a flawless performance on a single task. It will be the quality of your relationships, the integrity of your actions, the challenges you faced with courage, and the love you gave and received. Making this a regular mental habit can fundamentally change your relationship with stress. It's a way to actively practice wisdom by regularly reminding yourself of the bigger picture. You can do it in the middle of a stressful moment by simply closing your eyes and taking 3 deep breaths while you envision that cosmic perspective. You can also make it a reflective practice at the end of the day, looking back on your reactions and considering which moments would have looked different if you had viewed them from above. This framework doesn't encourage detachment from life. On the contrary, it allows you to engage with it more fully by freeing you from the tyranny of the trivial. It helps you pour your precious energy into the people and pursuits that truly matter, letting the small stuff fade into the background where it belongs. Now let's turn to one of the most empowering Stoic frameworks of all, a concept that completely reframes how we approach difficulty: the obstacle is the way. This powerful idea, central to the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, suggests that what stands in our path doesn't block the way, it actually becomes the way forward. Every challenge, every setback, every piece of resistance we encounter is not a stop sign but an invitation to grow, to adapt, and to discover strengths we didn't know we possessed. For women navigating complex professional landscapes and personal lives, this mindset shift is nothing short of revolutionary. Consider a common career obstacle many women face: being passed over for a promotion you clearly deserved. The immediate reaction might understandably be frustration, self-doubt, or even anger at the perceived injustice. We could easily see this as a definitive setback, a sign that our efforts aren't valued or that the system is stacked against us. But the obstacle is the way asks us to pivot our perspective entirely. What if this rejection isn't a barrier to your success, but the very thing that propels you toward a better outcome? Perhaps this moment forces you to re-evaluate your goals, to realize you are chasing a title for validation rather than pursuing work that truly aligns with your values. Maybe it creates the necessary friction to finally update your resume and explore opportunities at a company that will genuinely value your contributions. The obstacle of rejection becomes the way to a more authentic career path. this framework shines brilliantly in the realm of personal challenges as well. Imagine facing a health issue that forces you to slow down. Where we might initially see only limitation and frustration, the Stoic lens helps us find the hidden path. This obstacle of forced rest becomes the way to deeper self-care. It becomes the catalyst for learning to listen to your body's signals, for setting firmer boundaries, and for re-evaluating a pace of life that was perhaps unsustainable. The obstacle doesn't disappear, but our relationship to it transforms. We stop seeing it as an enemy to be defeated and start working with it as a teacher showing us a different way to live. The true magic of this principle lies in its three-part process: how we perceive the obstacle, how we act within it, and the will we maintain throughout. First, we must consciously reframe our perception. Instead of labeling a difficult situation as bad or unfair, we can choose to see it as neutral material, raw clay we get to shape. A project failure isn't a verdict on your ability, it's data. A conflict in a relationship isn't a reason to withdraw, it's an opportunity to practice clearer communication and deeper empathy. This shift in perception immediately drains the situation of its emotional charge and allows you to see it with clarity. Next, we take purposeful and creative action within the new constraints. The obstacle itself often dictates the innovative solution. If a lack of funding blocks your business idea, the obstacle becomes the way to bootstrap creatively, building something leaner and more customer-focused from the start. If a lack of time blocks your fitness goals, the obstacle becomes the way to discover efficient 10-minute workouts that you can actually stick with. We stop trying to bulldoze through the barrier and instead start looking for the door it's pointing us toward. Finally, we cultivate an unwavering will throughout the process, the determination to keep going not in spite of the obstacle but because of it. This is where resilience and confidence are forged. Every time you successfully navigate a challenge by applying this framework, you deposit evidence into your mental bank account that you are capable, adaptable, and strong. You're not just solving a problem, you're building an identity as someone who can handle what life throws your way. The mother who manages a toddler's meltdown in the grocery store with patience instead of panic isn't just surviving the moment, she's building her confidence for the next challenge. The woman who channels the frustration of a creative block into trying a new approach isn't just finishing a project, she's expanding her skill set for life. This transformative approach means that nothing that happens to us is ever wasted. Every difficult person teaches us patience or boundary setting. Every failed plan teaches us flexibility and humility. Every moment of fear teaches us courage. The obstacles don't cease to be hard, but they cease to be meaningless. They become the reps in our mental and emotional gym, the training ground where we build the resilience, wisdom, and unshakable confidence that define a truly well-lived life. This next framework offers a crucial tool for navigating the emotional whirlwind that can come with balancing countless responsibilities. It's called practicing mindfulness of impressions, and it centers on that vital space between something happening and our reaction to it. The Stoics referred to our initial, raw perceptions of events as impressions. These are the immediate flashes of anger when a partner makes a careless comment, the spike of anxiety when a work email arrives after hours, or the pang of insecurity when scrolling through social media. These impressions are automatic and visceral, but the Stoic practice teaches us that they are not commands. They are merely suggestions, and the real power lies in our ability to pause and decide whether to accept that suggestion or not. For women who are often socialized to be emotionally attuned and responsive to the needs of others, this skill is absolutely transformative. We can feel pressured to react immediately, to soothe, to fix, to accommodate, or to absorb the emotional energy of everyone around us. This practice creates a critical buffer. It's the mental equivalent of taking your hand off a hot stove. Instead of lashing out in anger or collapsing into worry, you learn to hit the pause button. You create a moment of silence amidst the noise to ask yourself a simple but profound question. Is this initial impression true? Is it helpful? Is it aligned with the person I want to be? Or is it just a conditioned response to external pressure? Imagine a common scenario. You've had an exceptionally long day. You're finally home and trying to get dinner ready, and your child chooses that moment to have a complete meltdown over something seemingly trivial. The immediate impression might be one of sheer exasperation, a feeling that this is the last straw and that you're about to snap. Mindfulness of impressions invites you to catch that wave of emotion before it crashes. In that pause, you might realize your exasperation isn't really about the spilled juice or the refused bath. It's about your own exhaustion and the overwhelming weight of the day. That moment of awareness allows you to choose a different response. Instead of reacting with a sharp tone that you'll later regret, you can take a deep breath, kneel down, and offer a hug. You address the real need, your child's and your own, instead of reacting to the superficial trigger. This practice is equally powerful in professional settings. You'll receive feedback that feels unfairly critical or a request that seems completely unreasonable. The initial impression might be defensiveness or resentment. By pausing, you create the space to depersonalize the event. You can assess the feedback for any kernel of useful truth separate from its delivery. You can consider the perspective of the person making the request instead of immediately seeing it as an affront. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. On the contrary, it allows you to respond from a place of calm strength rather than reactive emotion. Your response becomes measured, professional, and values-driven, whether that means setting a clear boundary or thoughtfully incorporating valid critique. Ultimately, this framework is about reclaiming your sovereignty over your inner world. It's the practice of no longer being a puppet jerked around by every external event and every passing feeling. Each time you successfully pause and question an impression, you strengthen your ability to choose a response that reflects your core values of patience, wisdom, and compassion, rather than simply fulfilling a societal expectation to be endlessly accommodating or perfectly composed. You learn to act intentionally rather than react impulsively, building a life that feels authentically your own, one mindful moment at a time. Now we arrive at a framework that strikes at the very heart of where we place our hopes and pin our happiness, the discipline of desire. This principle invites a radical shift in what we choose to want. Instead of desiring specific outcomes like everyone liking us, a project succeeding, or receiving a certain type of recognition, Stoicism teaches us to redirect our deepest desires inward. The goal is to want only one thing with absolute fervor, to act with virtue, integrity, and good character in every single moment, regardless of the result. Your desire becomes not for a particular applause, but for the quiet knowledge that you showed up as your best self. This is profoundly relevant for women who are so often socialized from a young age to seek external validation. We are subtly taught that our worth is tied to being pleasant, helpful, agreeable, and attractive to others. Our desires can become externally focused, the desire to be perceived as a good mother, a successful professional, a supportive partner, a loyal friend. There's nothing wrong with these roles, but when our sense of self-worth is hooked to them, we hand over our emotional stability to forces we cannot control. We become like a ship tossed on the waves of other people's opinions and the changing tides of circumstance. The discipline of desire is the process of dropping our own anchor. Imagine you're about to host a family gathering. The external desire might be for everything to go perfectly, for the food to be praised, the house to be spotless, and for everyone to get along harmoniously. This sets you up for inevitable stress and potential disappointment because you cannot control any of those things. Someone might dislike the meal, a child might spill a drink, and relatives might reignite an old argument. The discipline of desire asks you to change your one goal for the evening. Your sole desire becomes to act as a gracious, calm, and present host. You desire to be patient with your children, kind to your guests, and flexible when things go off script. If you achieve that inner goal, the evening is a resounding success, no matter what external chaos unfolds. The spilled drink becomes a chance to practice patience, not a stain on your worth. This framework is incredibly liberating in a professional context. Rather than desiring a promotion or a specific piece of praise, you focus your desire on the process itself, doing excellent, thorough work, collaborating with generosity, speaking with honesty and respect. This doesn't mean you don't aim for the promotion, but you decouple your self-esteem from getting it. If you receive it, it's a welcome external. If you don't, your core desire to have acted with professional virtue was still fulfilled. Your value remains intact and untouchable. This mindset prevents the crushing blow of rejection and the addictive chase of titles that never truly satisfy the hunger for external validation. Cultivating this discipline is a practice of constant, gentle redirection. It starts with noticing when your happiness is contingent on something outside your control. That flutter of anxiety before sending a text, that's a desire for a specific response. The deflation you feel when a compliment you expected doesn't come. That's a desire for external affirmation. Each time you notice this, you have an opportunity to make the shift. Ask yourself, instead of wanting them to react a certain way, what is the virtuous action I can take right now? To communicate clearly, to act with integrity, you place the reward system for your life firmly within your own hands based on your own character. This is how we build an unshakable foundation of self-worth that no outside event can ever diminish. This brings us to a framework that transforms duty from a burden into a profound source of strength, the discipline of action. While the previous discipline focused on mastering our internal desires, this one is about perfecting our external deeds. It's the commitment to act rightly, justly, and with kindness in every situation, not because we are guaranteed a certain outcome, but simply because it is the right thing to do. For women who so often carry the weight of caregiving, community building, and emotional labor, this principle elevates those actions from mundane tasks to expressions of deep personal philosophy. The discipline of action asks us to shift our focus from the product to the process. In a world that constantly measures success by visible results, grades, promotions, social media likes, perfectly behaved children, this is a radical act. It means the value of your action is not determined by its outcome, but by the integrity and compassion you poured into it. You read the bedtime story with full presence, not to ensure your child becomes a brilliant reader, but because in that moment, connection is the right action. You offer thoughtful feedback to a colleague, not because it will guarantee their gratitude, but because supporting another's growth is a just and kind thing to do. The action itself, performed with the right intention, is its own complete success. This is incredibly freeing in roles where outcomes are inherently uncertain and often outside our control. A mother practices this discipline when she consistently sets loving boundaries for her teenager, not because it will always be met with compliance, but because providing clear, safe structure is a right action. A leader embodies it when she makes the ethically sound choice for her team, even when it's the harder path and may not be immediately popular. She acts justly because it aligns with her character, not because it will win a popularity contest. The discipline is in doing the thing itself well and for its own sake, and then releasing any attachment to how it is received or what it produces. This doesn't mean we become passive or stop caring about results. Of course, we want our children to thrive and our projects to succeed, but we uncouple our sense of worth and our emotional stability from those results. We begin to understand that we control the effort, not the harvest. This mindset is the ultimate antidote to perfectionism and the exhausting pursuit of external validation. You can leave the dishes in the sink knowing you chose the right action of resting instead of pushing yourself to burnout for the sake of a spotless kitchen. You can deliver a presentation flawlessly from a place of genuine expertise and still feel successful even if it doesn't land with every single person in the room, because your action was rooted in integrity. Ultimately, the discipline of action invites us to see every interaction, no matter how small, as an opportunity to practice our values. Holding the door for a stranger, listening fully without interrupting, writing that difficult email from a place of respect rather than frustration. These are not trivial things. They are the repetitions that build a life of profound character. When we make our primary goal to act with justice and kindness in each moment, we build a life that is not only resilient to external chaos, but one that is inherently meaningful regardless of the applause. This brings us to a framework that acts as the ultimate gatekeeper for your peace of mind, a powerful tool for deconstructing the stories we tell ourselves that so often lead to anxiety and self-doubt. It's called the discipline of assent, and it's about learning to critically examine your initial thoughts and beliefs before automatically accepting them as truth. In the Stoic model of the mind, an impression, that initial flash of feeling or thought arrives first. Then we have the power to either give our assent to that impression, making it a full-blown belief that dictates our emotions and actions, or we can pause, question it, and refuse to sign on the dotted line. This moment of pause is where our true freedom lies. For women who frequently navigate internal landscapes shaped by imposter syndrome, negative self-talk, and a constant barrage of societal messaging about who we should be, this discipline is nothing short of essential. That critical inner voice that whispers, "You're not qualified for this promotion," or "everyone else has it all figured out," is not a fact, it's an impression. The feeling of inadequacy that washes over you when comparing yourself to a curated social media feed is not a verdict on your life, it's a feeling. The discipline of assent teaches you to catch these impressions at the door and ask for their credentials before you let them in, and allow them to rearrange your emotional furniture. Let's break down how this works with a common scenario many women face: receiving constructive feedback. The initial impression might be a sharp sting of shame or defensiveness, accompanied by the immediate thought, "I've failed." They think I'm incompetent. Without this discipline, we instantly assent to that thought. We internalize it, believe it to be an absolute truth, and our entire day can be derailed by feelings of insecurity and self-reproach. But with the discipline of assent, you insert a crucial moment of inquiry between the sting and the story. You pause and ask, is that thought entirely accurate? Is it helpful? What is the actual evidence? Perhaps the feedback was on one specific slide in a 20-slide presentation, not a condemnation of your entire capability. Maybe your manager took the time to give you notes because they believe in your potential and want to invest in your growth. By withholding your immediate assent, you create the space to choose a more nuanced, accurate, and empowering belief. This feedback is about one specific task, not my entire worth. It's data I can use to improve, not a judgment on my character. This practice is your primary defense against the corrosive effects of imposter syndrome. That feeling of being a fraud who is about to be discovered isn't a reality. It's a powerful impression fueled by self-doubt and perhaps past experiences. When that feeling arises, instead of assenting to it and letting it shrink your ambitions, you can investigate it. You can look at the factual evidence of your accomplishments, the skills you've honed, and the challenges you've already overcome. You can recognize the impression for what it is, a fear-based story, not a truth, and choose to assent instead to a belief grounded in your actual capabilities and preparation. The same process applies to dismantling the societal pressures that so often undermine our confidence. An impression arises when you see an image of a seemingly perfect home or family, accompanied by the thought, "I should be doing more. My life doesn't measure up." The disciplined response is to refuse your assent. You question the narrative. You recognize that the image is a curated highlight reel, not a full documentary of someone's life. You reassess your own values and consciously choose to assent to a different, more personal belief. My worth is not defined by a comparison to an unrealistic standard. I am building a life that is authentic and meaningful to me on my own terms. By mastering the discipline of assent, you reclaim the authority to define your own reality, building a foundation of confidence that is resilient, self-determined, and impervious to the shifting sands of external opinion and internal critique. Now we come to a framework that might sound stark at first, yet holds within it an incredible power to bring clarity, courage, and profound purpose to our daily lives. Memento mori, the practice of remembering that you will die. This is not a morbid fixation on the end, but a powerful tool for prioritizing what truly matters. It's the conscious practice of holding the finite nature of our time here in mind, not to create fear, but to create focus. It serves as a constant, gentle whisper in our ear, asking, if today were your last, would you be spending it this way? Are the things causing you stress and anxiety truly worthy of your precious, limited attention? For women who are so often pulled in countless directions by the demands and expectations of others, this practice is a powerful anchor to our own authenticity. It helps us cut through the endless noise of societal shoulds and external pressures to ask the most important question of all: what do I want my life to have been about? Memento mori isn't about achieving some grand, world-changing legacy. It's about the legacy of our character, the quality of our relationships, and the integrity of our daily actions. It's the ultimate filter for distinguishing between the trivial and the timeless. Imagine you're agonizing over whether to post a picture on social media, worrying about how it will be perceived, or spending mental energy crafting the perfect caption to elicit a certain reaction. The practice of memento mori invites you to pull back and view that action through the lens of your mortality. From that vantage point, the number of likes or the perfect aesthetic becomes almost laughably insignificant. What would become immediately important is whether you were present in the moment the photo was taken, whether you felt genuine joy, and whether you're investing your real-life time in the people you love, rather than curating a life for distant acquaintances to admire. This reflection instantly dissolves the fear of judgment, because the only audience that ultimately matters is your own conscience. This framework provides immense courage to make difficult but necessary changes. Perhaps you're staying in a job that drains your spirit because it feels secure, or you're remaining in a friendship that consistently leaves you feeling diminished because ending it would be uncomfortable. Remembering that your time is limited and non-renewable injects a powerful dose of urgency into these decisions. It asks, are you willing to trade a year of your life for that paycheck? Are you willing to spend your finite emotional energy on a relationship that takes more than it gives? This isn't a call for impulsive selfishness, but for profound self-respect. It gives you the courage to have that hard conversation, to set that firm boundary, or to finally pursue that long-delayed passion project, because the cost of not doing it, a life of quiet regret, becomes far more frightening than the temporary discomfort of change. At its heart, memento mori is a practice of deep gratitude and presence. It transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary gifts. The messy family dinner isn't a chore, it's a fleeting, beautiful chapter you get to participate in. The walk with a friend isn't just an item on your calendar, it's a shared experience that becomes part of your story. By regularly remembering that all of this is temporary, we don't fall into sadness. We fall into a deeper appreciation for the simple, beautiful reality of being alive. We stop postponing joy for a hypothetical future where everything is perfectly in order, and we start finding it in the imperfect, magnificent present. We begin to live not as if we have forever, but as if today is a priceless, irreplaceable opportunity to love fully, act bravely, and leave a gentle, positive imprint on the world through our kindness and our character. Building on this profound sense of our own finite time, we now turn to a framework that expands our perspective outward, connecting our individual journey to the vast tapestry of all life. This is the practice of sympatheia, the Stoic principle of interconnectedness. While the previous frameworks often focus on our internal world and personal resilience, sympatheia invites us to see that we are not isolated islands navigating life alone. We are integral threads in a complex, living web, each of our actions sending ripples through the whole. This concept deeply resonates with the way many women intuitively view the world, through a lens of relationships, community, and collective well-being, often prioritizing the health of the whole over mere individual achievement. The ancient Stoics viewed the universe as a single, rational, living organism, a concept they called the cosmopolis. In this view, every person, every creature, and every element of nature is a vital part of a greater whole, much like individual cells are part of a larger body. To harm another or to act without regard for the community is ultimately to harm oneself because we are all connected. This isn't a vague spiritual idea. It's a practical call to recognize that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of those around us. Your neighbor's hardship, a colleague's stress, the health of your local environment, these are not separate from you. They are part of the ecosystem you inhabit, and their vitality contributes to your own. This perspective is a powerful antidote to the loneliness and hyper-individualism that can dominate modern life. For the woman who feels the weight of the world's problems, sympatheia doesn't add to that burden, it recontextualizes it. You are not responsible for fixing everything, but you are invited to play your part with compassion and responsibility. It transforms everyday actions into meaningful contributions to the whole. Preparing a healthy meal for your family isn't just a chore. It's an act of nurturing that strengthens your small part of the universal organism. Volunteering in your community, supporting a local business, or simply listening with full attention to a friend in need, these are not small things. They are the practical expressions of sympatheia, the ways we actively maintain and repair the web of connection we all share. Consider how this applies to the workplace, often seen as an arena of competition. A Stoic practicing sympatheia would approach her team not as rivals for recognition, but as fellow citizens in the cosmopolis of their company. Her success is not achieved by outshining others, but by elevating the entire group. She shares credit freely, mentors new colleagues, and understands that a team that thrives together will ultimately achieve far more than any individual acting alone. This creates a culture of mutual support and psychological safety that benefits everyone, and it aligns perfectly with a leadership style that is often described as more collaborative and inclusive. On a broader scale, sympatheia fosters a deep sense of global citizenship and environmental stewardship. It asks us to consider the impact of our choices not just on ourselves, but on people we will never meet and on generations yet to come. Choosing to consume more mindfully, to reduce waste, or to advocate for equitable policies becomes a natural extension of recognizing our interconnection. We begin to see that the plastic polluting a distant ocean is part of our world, and the injustice faced by a community on the other side of the globe is a fracture in our shared human family. This framework provides a philosophical foundation for the empathy and compassionate action that so many women feel driven to express, validating that urge to care as a form of profound wisdom, not just sentiment. Ultimately, sympatheia balances the Stoic focus on personal virtue with a heartfelt duty to the common good. It tells us that building an inner fortress of resilience is not about withdrawing from the world, but about becoming a stronger, more stable node within the network, capable of offering more support and weathering shared storms without breaking. It is the understanding that your journey toward tranquility is not a solitary retreat, but a contribution to a more peaceful, rational, and compassionate world for everyone. By seeing ourselves as part of this vast, living whole, we find that our individual struggles gain greater meaning and our capacity for empathetic action becomes one of our greatest strengths. Moving from the expansive view of our interconnection, we now turn inward to a deeply personal practice that builds the very resilience needed to thrive within that web, voluntary discomfort. This framework is about the deliberate and conscious choice to embrace small, manageable hardships in your daily life. It's not about seeking out suffering or adopting a life of austerity, but about strategically stepping outside your comfort zone to fortify your mind against life's inevitable and unpredictable difficulties. For women who often bear the emotional weight of ensuring comfort and stability for others, this practice is a reclaiming of personal strength, a way to ensure that when larger challenges arise, you are not easily shaken. Think of it as mental and emotional weight training. Just as you would lift weights to strengthen your muscles for the physical demands of life, you voluntarily take on small discomforts to strengthen your resilience for the psychological and emotional demand. The goal is to become intimately familiar with the feeling of discomfort itself, to sit with it, observe it, and ultimately to realize that it is not an emergency. This knowledge is profoundly empowering. It dismantles the fear of hardship before the hardship even arrives, allowing you to face unexpected setbacks not with panic, but with a calm, practiced competence. The practices themselves can be simple and seamlessly integrated into your routine. It might mean taking a cold shower for the final minute of your morning routine. That initial shock of cold is a masterclass in mental fortitude. Your entire body and mind will scream in protest, urging you to step back into the warmth. But if you stay, breathe through it, and observe the sensation without immediately fleeing, you accomplish something significant. You prove to yourself that you can handle acute discomfort with presence and choice. You learn that the feeling, while intense, is temporary and survivable. This tiny daily victory builds a reservoir of confidence that you can draw from when facing a stressful confrontation or a moment of high anxiety. Another powerful practice is intermittent fasting or simply skipping a meal occasionally. This isn't about dieting, it's about breaking the automatic rhythm of comfort and satiation. It's an exercise in mastering your impulses. When hunger pangs arise, instead of immediately reaching for a snack, you sit with the sensation. You observe the stories your mind starts to tell you about being deprived or needing instant gratification. This practice builds the discipline to pause between a desire and its fulfillment, a skill that is invaluable in everything from managing emotional eating to resisting the impulse to buy something you don't need for a fleeting hit of dopamine. It teaches you that you are in command of your appetites, not the other way around. You can practice voluntary discomfort in your digital life as well. This could be a designated day without social media, leaving your phone at home during a walk, or resisting the urge to immediately check a notification. These acts are a rebellion against the constant pull of external validation and distraction. They create space for boredom, which in turn becomes a catalyst for creativity, self-reflection, and a deeper connection to your immediate environment. By voluntarily stepping away from the noise, you strengthen your ability to focus and to find contentment within yourself, rather than in the endless scroll of curated lives. The profound benefit of this practice is a radical renewal of gratitude for the ordinary comforts we so often take for granted. That warm shower after a minute of cold feels like a profound luxury. A simple meal after a period of fasting tastes more vibrant and nourishing. The comfort of your bed feels exponentially more welcoming after a day of physical exertion. Voluntary discomfort recalibrates your appreciation meter, pulling you out of autopilot and into a state of active gratitude for the myriad comforts that make up a good life. This isn't about feeling guilty for having comforts, it's about learning to truly savor them by not taking them for granted. Ultimately, this framework is about preparation. Life will inevitably bring its share of cold showers, the sudden job loss, the health scare, the personal loss. By voluntarily practicing with small, chosen hardships, you build the emotional calluses and the deep-seated knowing that you can handle adversity. You are not preparing for a life without difficulty, but building a self that is unafraid of difficulty. This practice ensures that when life storms arrive, you won't be shattered by the first gust of wind. You will have already learned how to stand firm, breathe through the discomfort, and trust in your own proven capacity to endure and overcome. This brings us to a framework that offers a profound antidote to the relentless pressure to achieve, acquire, and constantly strive for more, the art of contentment. In a world that bombards us with messages telling us we are not enough until we have the perfect job, the ideal body, the most well-behaved children, and a home that looks like a magazine spread, this Stoic practice is a radical act of rebellion. It's not about giving up on your goals or settling for less. It's about discovering a deep and unshakable satisfaction that comes from within, making you the sole author of your own happiness rather than a character in someone else's story of success. For women, this pressure to have it all can feel like an inescapable trap. We're told we can and should be the high-powered executive, the doting mother, the passionate partner, the dedicated friend, and the wellness guru, all while maintaining a flawless appearance and a serene demeanor. This impossible standard sets us up for a perpetual cycle of striving, comparing, and inevitably feeling like we're falling short. The art of contentment shatters this cycle by shifting the entire definition of success from external benchmarks to internal virtues. It asks a simple but life-altering question. What if you already have everything you need to be happy, right here and right now within you? This contentment is found not in the accumulation of things or accolades, but in the cultivation of character. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. When we make the practice of these virtues our primary aim, our sense of fulfillment becomes completely independent of life's circumstances. Did you act with wisdom in a difficult conversation? That is a success. Did you find the courage to set a necessary boundary? That is an achievement. Did you treat a stranger with fairness and kindness? That is a victory. Your worth is measured by the integrity of your actions, not by the size of your salary or the number of followers you have. This internal scorecard liberates you from the exhausting game of comparison and allows you to find joy in your own progress on your own terms. Imagine 2 different approaches to a Saturday morning. One woman wakes up with a long list of errands and chores, her mind already racing with everything she needs to accomplish to feel productive and good. She moves through her day with a sense of underlying anxiety, ticking boxes but never truly feeling at peace because the list is endless. Another woman, practicing the art of contentment, also wakes up with a list. But her primary goal for the day is not to complete every task, it is to move through each one with presence and virtue. While grocery shopping, her goal is patience and courtesy with the cashier. While playing with her children, her goal is to be fully engaged and joyful, not distracted by her phone. The value of her day is not determined by how many items she checked off, but by the quality of her presence in each moment. At the end of the day, the first woman may have a cleaner house but feels depleted. The second woman may have a few unfinished tasks, but she carries a deep sense of fulfillment because she lived in alignment with her values. This framework is especially powerful for navigating the curated perfection of social media. It's all too easy to scroll through a feed and feel a pang of discontent, believing others are living more exciting, successful, or beautiful lives. The art of contentment gives you the tools to reframe that experience instantly. Instead of comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, you can turn your attention inward. You can ask yourself, am I practicing gratitude for the real, imperfect beauty of my own life? Am I courageous enough to be authentically myself, rather than trying to mimic a filtered version of happiness? This practice allows you to appreciate others' successes without letting them diminish your own sense of peace. Cultivating this art is a daily practice of mindful redirection. It starts with catching yourself when you tie your happiness to a future condition. Thoughts like, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion," or "I'll feel confident when I lose 10 pounds" are gently noticed and then reframed. You learn to ask, what virtue can I practice right now, regardless of that outcome? Can I be diligent and professional today, feeling the satisfaction of a job well done, even without the promotion? Can I treat my body with respect and care today, appreciating its strength even before any weight loss? This shifts your focus from a distant, conditional happiness to an immediate, unconditional contentment that is available in every single moment you choose to act with virtue. It is the ultimate declaration that your worth is not something to be earned, it is something to be lived right now. This powerful framework, focusing on process over outcomes, builds directly on the Stoic emphasis on what we control, offering a practical pathway to not only reduce anxiety, but to rediscover genuine joy and fulfillment in our daily pursuits. It asks us to shift our primary focus from the distant, often unpredictable finish line to the very next step we are taking. For women navigating highly competitive environments, whether in corporate leadership, creative industries, academia, or even the subtle but intense arena of social comparison, this isn't just a nice idea. It's a critical survival skill that preserves our mental energy and protects our sense of self. Think about the immense pressure that comes from being outcome-focused. Your happiness becomes contingent on a result that is only partially in your hands. You submit a proposal, and your emotional state for the next week is held hostage awaiting a response. You go on a date, and your self-worth becomes tangled in whether they text back. You pour your heart into a project, and its public reception determines whether you feel like a success or a failure. This constant emotional roller coaster is exhausting because it hands the reins of your inner peace over to external judges and unpredictable circumstances. The process-focused approach, by contrast, reclaims those reins. It says that your success is determined the moment you give your best effort, regardless of the result. The outcome is simply data, information to learn from, but it is not the report card on your value. Consider a woman training for a marathon. If her entire sense of accomplishment is tied to hitting a specific time goal, her entire experience becomes fraught with anxiety. Every training run that is slower than her goal pace feels like a failure. The weather on race day, a minor cramp, or an unexpected hill can completely derail her sense of achievement. Now imagine she shifts her focus to the process. Her goal is no longer the finish time. It is to show up for her training runs with consistency, to listen to her body with respect, to properly fuel herself, and to enjoy the feeling of strength and movement. On race day, her goal is to run with gratitude, to stay mentally present, and to appreciate the crowd's support. If she achieves that, her race is an unqualified success. If she also happens to hit her time goal, that's a wonderful bonus. But if she doesn't, she still has the profound victory of having executed her process with integrity and joy. She detaches from the single outcome and attaches instead to the hundreds of tiny, controllable actions that make up the journey. This mindset is incredibly liberating in professional settings where women often face heightened scrutiny. Imagine you're leading a critical project. The outcome-focused approach would have you stressed about the final client presentation, worried about their approval, and anxious about your boss's reaction. Your energy is spent on managing anxiety about the future. The process-focused approach redirects that energy into the present. Your job becomes to research thoroughly, to collaborate effectively with your team, to prepare the presentation with clarity and care, and to practice your delivery until it feels authentic. You pour your excellence into these actions, which are entirely within your control. When it's time to present, you do so with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you have done your absolute best. The client's decision is now outside your hands. You can receive their feedback, whether it's a yes or a no, with professional grace because your self-assessment was already complete. You succeeded when you executed the process with excellence. This framework also dismantles the fear of failure that holds so many back from taking risks. When you are process-focused, there is no such thing as true failure. There is only feedback. An outcome that didn't meet your hopes is simply information about what to adjust in your process next time. A rejected manuscript tells you something about the market or your approach, not about your inherent talent. A venture that didn't succeed teaches you invaluable lessons about business, relationships, and resilience that will inform your next endeavor. By decoupling your ego from the result, you free yourself to experiment, to iterate, and to innovate without the paralyzing dread of making a mistake. Your identity remains intact, rooted in your effort and your willingness to learn, rather than being shattered by a setback. Ultimately, focusing on the process transforms the journey itself from a means to an end into the very source of meaning. The long hours of practice become a meditation in discipline. The deep research becomes an adventure in learning. The difficult conversations become exercises in courage and communication. You begin to find satisfaction not in the trophy, but in the strength you gained from training for it. This is how we build a life of sustainable achievement, where our worth is not a variable waiting to be validated by the world, but a constant, built daily through our focused, passionate, and controlled effort. The outcome will come and go, but the character you forge by dedicating yourself to an excellent process is yours forever. This brings us to one of the most practical and transformative frameworks a woman can integrate into her life, a daily practice that acts as both a compass and a gentle course correction, the practice of self-examination. In the relentless flow of our responsibilities, it's alarmingly easy to move through our days on autopilot, reacting to events rather than leading with intention. We can end a week feeling drained and scattered, wondering where the time went and if any of our actions truly aligned with who we want to be. Self-examination, or what the Stoics called their nightly review, is the deliberate pause that breaks this cycle. It's a dedicated space to look back on your day not with a critical eye, but with a curious and honest one, asking a simple but profound set of questions. Where did I act in alignment with my values today? Where did I fall short? What did I learn? And how can I do better tomorrow? This practice is far more than a simple diary entry. It is a strategic tool for maintaining your integrity and your sense of self amidst a world that constantly pulls you in different directions. For the woman juggling a career, family, and personal aspirations, this daily audit is how you ensure you are the one steering the ship, rather than being tossed by every wave of demand and expectation. It's the process of checking your internal navigation system against the external journey you're taking, making tiny adjustments before you find yourself miles off course. A practical way to implement this is to set aside just 5 to 10 minutes at the end of your day. Find a quiet moment, perhaps with a notebook or simply in your own thoughts, and gently review the key moments of your day through the lens of the Stoic virtues. Start with wisdom. Did I make decisions today based on fear or on thoughtful consideration? Did I act on impulse, or did I pause to question my initial impressions? For instance, perhaps you snapped at your partner over something minor. Upon examination, you realized the snap wasn't about them. It was the overflow of stress from a meeting where you didn't speak up for your idea. The wisdom is in connecting those dots, seeing the root cause rather than just the symptom. Next, consider courage. Did I avoid a difficult conversation I knew I needed to have? Did I shy away from a professional opportunity because of self-doubt? Or conversely, did I set a boundary that was uncomfortable but necessary? Celebrating these moments of courage, however small, is vital. It might have been the courage to finally say no to chairing another committee, freeing up your energy for projects that truly matter to you. Acknowledging this reinforces the behavior and builds your confidence for the next challenge. Then reflect on justice. This virtue, in the Stoic sense, is about our duty to others and our role in the community. Did I treat everyone I interacted with today with fairness and respect? Was I generous with my time or my praise? Did I contribute to my team's success, or was I primarily focused on my own? Perhaps you notice you were short with a customer service representative, viewing them as an obstacle rather than a person. The practice isn't to berate yourself, but to gently note it and reaffirm your commitment to seeing the humanity in everyone you meet, making a mental note to offer more patience tomorrow. Finally, examine temperance or self-discipline. Did I overindulge in something, perhaps scrolling on my phone instead of being present with my children, or spending money on something impulsive to soothe a bad mood? Did I allow my emotions to dictate my actions, or did I maintain command over my responses? Maybe you committed to a morning workout but hit snooze instead. The reflection isn't about guilt, it's about understanding the trigger. Were you up too late? Did you not lay out your clothes? This turns a perceived failure into a practical problem with a practical solution for the next day. The immense power of this practice is that it transforms vague feelings of unease or dissatisfaction into actionable data. That lingering sense of stress at the end of a busy day often comes from a misalignment between our actions and our values, but we can't always pinpoint why. Self-examination gives you the pinpoint. It allows you to celebrate your progress in a tangible way, which is so important for women who often minimize their own achievements. Did you handle a toddler's tantrum with more patience than last week? That is a monumental victory worth noting. Did you delegate a task at work instead of trying to do it all yourself? That is a step toward sustainable success. This daily practice builds a compassionate and evidence-based narrative of your growth, counteracting the inner critic with cold, hard facts of your improvement. Ultimately, this nightly review is the stitch that saves 9. It's the small, consistent investment that prevents large-scale crises of confidence or integrity. It ensures you are constantly learning from your experiences, refining your character, and moving closer to the woman you aspire to be, not in some distant future, but in the accumulation of consciously lived days. It is the quiet, powerful ritual that keeps you authentically and unshakably yourself, no matter how chaotic the world around you becomes. Cultivating equanimity is the practice of developing a steady, balanced mind that remains unshaken by the highs and lows of life. It's not about becoming emotionally numb or detached. Rather, it's about building a profound inner stability that allows you to feel your emotions fully without being completely overthrown by them. For women who so often serve as the emotional anchors in their families, workplaces, and friendships, this isn't a luxury, it's an essential skill for sustainability. It's the difference between being a calm, deep lake that reflects the sky clearly, even during a storm, and being a shallow puddle that is churned into mud by the slightest disturbance. The constant emotional labor that falls disproportionately on women managing the moods of others, anticipating needs, soothing conflicts, and absorbing stress, is a fast track to burnout if undertaken without this inner ballast. Equanimity provides that ballast. It allows you to be deeply empathetic and caring without becoming a sponge that soaks up every drop of emotional turmoil around you. You learn to hold space for someone else's pain or anger without taking ownership of it, to listen with compassion without feeling responsible for fixing it, and to offer support from a place of grounded strength rather than depleted obligation. This is how you avoid the classic trap of giving so much to everyone else that you have nothing left for yourself. Consider a high-pressure scenario like a workplace crisis where tensions are running high. Without equanimity, the anxiety and urgency of your colleagues can quickly become your own. You might find your heart racing, your thoughts scattering, and your reactions becoming sharp and panicked. With a cultivated sense of balance, you can acknowledge the seriousness of the situation without internalizing the chaos. You can take a quiet breath, assess the facts clearly, and respond with focused, decisive action. Your calm presence doesn't mean you don't care, it means you care enough to be effective. You become a stabilizing force that others can rely on, precisely because you are not easily destabilized. This practice is equally vital in the whirlwind of caregiving, whether for children or aging parents. A child's meltdown or a parent's difficult day can easily trigger our own frustration, guilt, or exhaustion. Equanimity is the mental muscle that allows you to witness the storm without joining it. You can validate your child's big feelings without mirroring their panic. You can sit with a parent's confusion or sadness without being pulled into a vortex of despair yourself. This doesn't make you cold or uncaring. It makes you a far more effective and resilient source of support. You provide a container for their emotions because your own container is strong and secure. Building this quality is a daily discipline, a series of small choices that reinforce your inner stability. It starts with the mindfulness to notice when you are being emotionally hijacked. The moment you feel that surge of anger in a traffic jam or that knot of anxiety before a difficult conversation, you have a choice. You can practice pausing before reacting. You might place a hand on your heart, take 3 conscious breaths, and silently affirm, "I am not this feeling. This is a passing storm. I can choose my response." This tiny space between the trigger and your reaction is where equanimity is born. Another powerful method is to consciously widen your perspective in the heat of the moment. When a problem feels overwhelming, ask yourself, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? This isn't to minimize your experience, but to contextualize it, draining it of its excessive emotional charge and allowing you to address it with clearer, calmer reason. Regular practices like meditation, journaling, or even daily walks in nature are not escapes from reality. They are training grounds for equanimity. They are the reps that strengthen your ability to return to center, no matter what life throws your way. By committing to this practice, you build an unshakable core of peace that allows you to engage fully with the world without losing yourself in it. This brings us to a framework that speaks directly to the heart of how we relate to others and navigate our place in the world, the principle of justice. In the Stoic sense, justice is far more expansive than a legal concept. It is the overarching virtue of living in right relation with all of humanity. It encompasses fairness, kindness, benevolence, and a deep sense of our shared citizenship in the world. For women, who are so often the caregivers, the community builders, and the moral compasses within their social spheres, this principle provides a powerful philosophical foundation for their innate drive to make things right, transforming it from a source of potential exhaustion into a wellspring of purposeful and sustainable action. The unique challenge many women face is a strong ethical intuition that can sometimes lead to feeling personally responsible for righting every wrong, which is an impossible and draining burden. We see injustice, whether it's a child being left out on the playground, an unfair policy at work, or a global crisis, and we feel a visceral pull to fix it. Without a framework, this can manifest as people-pleasing, overcommitment, and eventually, deep resentment when our efforts aren't recognized or the problems feel too vast. Stoic justice reframes this entirely. It asks us to direct our benevolent action not from a place of obligation or a need for external validation, but from a place of principled choice. Our duty is not to solve everything, but to act with fairness and compassion in the sphere of influence we actually inhabit. Imagine you witness a colleague being interrupted and spoken over repeatedly in a meeting. The unjust impression might spark immediate frustration. The undisciplined response could be to internally fume, blame the culture, or later vent to a friend, all of which are draining and change nothing. The Stoic, guided by the principle of justice, pauses to discern what is within her control. She cannot control the interrupter's behavior, but she can control her own. A just action might be to deliberately redirect the conversation back to her interrupted colleague by saying, "I'd like to hear the rest of Sarah's point," as she was making a valuable contribution. This action is not about being the office hero or fixing the entire culture of sexism in one gesture. It is a controlled, purposeful act of fairness executed within her realm of influence. It aligns her actions with her values, and that alignment itself is the success, regardless of the larger outcome. This prevents the resentment that comes from feeling you've done nothing. You have done what you can with what you have where you are. This principle is incredibly empowering for setting boundaries, which are themselves a profound act of justice to oneself. Many women struggle with saying no because it feels like a failure to be helpful or accommodating. The principle of justice provides the ethical justification for a respectful no. It is not fair to your existing commitments, your energy, or your family to overextend yourself to the point of breakdown. Saying, "I cannot take on that extra project because it would prevent me from doing justice to my current responsibilities," is a statement rooted in integrity, not selfishness. It is a just allocation of your finite resources. This reframes boundary setting from an uncomfortable act of self-preservation into a virtuous act of ethical management. On a broader scale, this framework channels our natural compassion into effective action rather than overwhelming despair. Confronted with a world full of suffering, it's easy to feel paralyzed. Justice asks for clear-eyed engagement. You cannot solve world hunger, but you can act justly within your community. This might mean volunteering your professional skills to a local nonprofit, donating regularly to a cause you trust, or simply making a conscious effort to support businesses that treat their employees fairly. Each of these is a discrete, manageable act of justice that contributes to the whole without demanding that you sacrifice your own well-being on the altar of global problem-solving. You participate in the repair of the world through your daily choices, not through a single grand, exhausting gesture. Ultimately, the Stoic principle of justice validates the deep ethical concern many women feel while providing the tools to express it in a way that is sustainable, effective, and free of resentment. It tells us that our duty is not to bleed ourselves dry for every cause, but to bring a spirit of fairness, kindness, and active benevolence to every interaction we have, no matter how small. It is the understanding that a just world is built not by a few monumental acts of heroism, but by millions of small, consistent acts of integrity, listening fairly, sharing resources generously, speaking up against small injustices, and honoring our commitments to ourselves and others. This is how we make our corner of the world more right, and in doing so, we find a sense of purpose that energizes rather than depletes us. Finding inspiration in the lives of those who have walked the path before us offers a uniquely powerful form of mentorship, one that is especially potent for women seeking to embody Stoic principles in a modern context. This framework moves philosophy from the abstract into the tangible, providing us with living, breathing blueprints for resilience, integrity, and purpose. When we study the lives of exemplary figures, both historical and contemporary, we are not simply reading stories. We are engaging in a form of mental time travel, placing ourselves in their shoes during moments of crisis and choice, and asking ourselves the most practical question of all: what would they do? The Stoics themselves were fierce advocates of this practice. Seneca frequently wrote of the immense value of having a chosen guide or exemplar, whose image you keep in your mind to counsel you in moments of confusion. He advised, choose a master whose life, conversation, and soul-expressing face have satisfied you. Picture him always to yourself as your protector or your pattern. For a woman navigating the complexities of today's world, this master does not need to be an ancient philosopher. She could be a historical figure like Harriet Tubman, whose incredible courage and determination in the face of unimaginable danger were guided by a deep moral conviction, a perfect embodiment of Stoic courage and justice. She could be a scientist like Marie Curie, whose relentless pursuit of knowledge amid personal hardship and societal barriers demonstrates profound discipline and focus on her work, a testament to focusing on the process rather than the outcome. The true power of this practice lies in its specificity. Don't just admire a role model from a distance, study their decisions. How did they handle public criticism? How did they treat people who had wronged them? Where did they find the strength to continue after a devastating failure? For instance, if you are struggling with a fear of speaking up in meetings, you might call upon the example of someone like Eleanor Roosevelt, who used her voice relentlessly for human rights despite intense scrutiny and personal insecurity. In that moment of hesitation, instead of being governed by fear, you can literally ask, "What would Eleanor do?" This mental shortcut bypasses anxiety and connects you directly to a model of confident action. This framework is also incredibly effective for navigating the personal spheres of motherhood, partnership, and friendship. We may not have ancient Stoic texts on managing toddler tantrums, but we can find modern exemplars of patience and wisdom. Perhaps it's a grandmother who met every challenge with unwavering grace, or a friend who navigates a difficult marriage with profound respect and boundary setting. The key is to identify the specific virtue you wish to cultivate and then find its embodiment in someone you admire. By holding that image in your mind, you give yourself a tangible standard to aspire to, making the abstract concept of virtue something you can actually see and emulate. Ultimately, using role models builds confidence not through theoretical knowledge, but through proven evidence. It provides irrefutable proof that the Stoic ideals of courage, justice, and resilience are not just possible, they have been lived. When your inner critic whispers that a challenge is too great, you can counter it with the living memory of a woman who faced far worse and not only endured but thrived. This practice surrounds you with a personal advisory board of the wisest, strongest minds in history, whose counsel is always available, reminding you that you too are capable of remarkable strength and profound grace. Building on the strength we draw from exemplars, we now turn to a framework that actively rewires our brain for happiness and resilience, a practice that is both deceptively simple and profoundly transformative, the practice of gratitude. In a world that constantly highlights what we lack, the perfect body, the ideal job, the more luxurious home, our minds are hardwired with a negativity bias, a survival mechanism that scans for threats and shortcomings. For women, who are often the emotional barometers of their households, this bias can become a relentless internal critic, amplifying stress and obscuring the very real blessings that surround us. Gratitude is the conscious, daily practice of countering this innate bias, of deliberately shifting our focus from what's missing to what is abundantly present, thereby fundamentally altering our experience of life itself. This is far more than just saying thank you or making a mental note of the good things. It is an active cultivation of a specific lens through which to view your world. Neuroscientific research has shown that regularly practicing gratitude literally changes the brain's structure, strengthening neural pathways associated with happiness and social connection while dampening those linked to anxiety and fear. For the woman feeling overwhelmed by her to-do list, practicing gratitude doesn't erase the tasks, but it can transform the resentment around them into a sense of purpose. That pile of laundry can become a reminder that you have a family to care for. The grocery shopping becomes a testament to your ability to provide nourishment. This isn't about Pollyanna-ish denial of life's difficulties. It's about choosing to also hold space for life's gifts, creating a more balanced and accurate narrative of your reality. The practice shines with particular brilliance in the realm of relationships, where taking things for granted is an easy trap to fall into. It's common to focus on what a partner isn't doing, or how a friend forgot to call, or the ways our children test our patience. A gratitude practice directly challenges this. It involves making a conscious effort to notice and acknowledge the small, positive actions that often go unseen. Perhaps your partner made coffee this morning. Maybe your child offered you a drawing without being asked. A colleague held the door open for you. By actively looking for these moments and mentally registering them, or better yet, writing them down, you begin to collect evidence of goodness that counteracts the story of lack or neglect. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine issues, but it ensures that your perception of a relationship is not solely defined by its challenges, creating a more forgiving and generous emotional space from which to address them. Implementing this practice can be beautifully simple and deeply personal. One powerful method is the classic gratitude journal. This isn't about writing lengthy essays. It's the daily habit of jotting down 3 to 5 specific things you're grateful for from the past 24 hours. The key is in the specificity. Instead of "I'm grateful for my family," you might write, "I'm grateful for the way my daughter laughed uncontrollably at dinner tonight." Or, "I'm grateful for the quiet 5 minutes my partner and I had to share a cup of tea before the day began." This specificity forces you to truly recall and re-experience the positive emotion, solidifying the memory and its associated feeling of warmth and appreciation. Another profound practice is the mental gratitude review as you fall asleep. Instead of replaying the day's stresses or tomorrow's worries, you can consciously guide your mind through a catalogue of the day's blessings, both large and small. This could be the warmth of the sun on your face during your walk, the taste of a perfectly ripe piece of fruit, the comfort of your bed, or the fact that you made it through a difficult conversation with your integrity intact. This practice does more than just improve your mood. It sets the stage for restful sleep by calming the nervous system and directing your mind toward safety and abundance rather than threat and scarcity, allowing you to wake up refreshed and oriented toward the good that the new day may hold. Ultimately, the regular practice of gratitude is a declaration of independence from the circumstances of your life. Your happiness is no longer contingent on everything going perfectly according to plan. Instead, you develop the ability to find points of light even on the darkest days, to appreciate the warmth of a cup of tea in the midst of chaos, or to value your own resilience after a setback. It builds a foundational sense of enoughness that makes you less vulnerable to the siren song of consumerism and comparison. By training your eyes to see the abundance that is already here, you realize that the source of your well-being was never outside of you, waiting to be acquired. It is within and all around you, waiting only to be acknowledged and cherished. This next framework invites us to confront one of the most pervasive and draining pressures of modern life, the relentless feeling that we never quite have enough. In a culture that constantly sells us the next upgrade, the newer model, the higher status, and the more curated life, the goalposts for sufficiency are always moving, ensuring we remain in a perpetual state of striving and dissatisfaction. For women, this pressure is particularly acute, amplified by marketing that ties our worth to our possessions, our appearance, and our ability to juggle and achieve it all. Stoicism offers a powerful antidote to this anxiety with a simple, revolutionary question. What is truly enough for me? This isn't about settling for less. It's about defining more for yourself on your own terms, liberating your energy from the endless chase for external validation and redirecting it toward a life of genuine contentment. The first step in this practice is to consciously define what enough means in the key areas of your life. This requires stepping off the treadmill of comparison and turning inward for your metrics of success. In terms of possessions, enough is not a number, it's a feeling. It's the point where your belongings serve your needs and bring you joy without becoming a source of clutter, debt, or constant maintenance that drains your energy. For one woman, enough might be a capsule wardrobe of high-quality, versatile pieces that make getting dressed a simple pleasure rather than a stressful ordeal. For another, it might mean having a home that feels peaceful and functional, not one that requires incessant cleaning, organizing, and upgrading to meet some idealized standard from a magazine. The Stoic practice here is to regularly ask yourself if a potential purchase aligns with your defined needs and values, or if it's merely feeding an impulse born from advertising or social envy. This principle extends powerfully to our professional lives and our sense of status. The corporate world often operates on a model of endless growth, equating constant promotion and increased income with success. But what if your definition of enough in your career is not the next title, but the freedom to leave work at a reasonable hour to have dinner with your family? What if it's having a role that aligns with your values, even if it doesn't come with the most prestigious corner office? Or what if it's simply earning a salary that comfortably covers your needs and allows for saving, freeing you from financial anxiety without demanding you sacrifice your health and relationships on the altar of limitless ambition? Defining professional enough allows you to pursue goals from a place of purposeful choice rather than frantic obligation, and it gives you the courage to say no to opportunities that would force you to trade your peace for a paycheck. Perhaps the most liberating application of this framework is to our achievements and our sense of self-worth. We live in a world that celebrates the hustle, the side gig, the optimized life, subtly suggesting that if you're not constantly accomplishing and adding to your list of accolades, you are falling behind. This is a recipe for burnout, especially for women who often feel they need to excel in every role simultaneously. The Stoic asks, when have you done enough for today? It might be when you've completed your most important work task, spent quality time with your children, and taken 30 minutes for your own well-being. The rest, the unanswered emails, the unchecked items on the to-do list can wait. Your worth is not measured by your productivity. By defining a clear stopping point, you reclaim your time and your mental space, understanding that rest, reflection, and simply being are not failures of diligence but essential components of a sustainable and fulfilling life. This conscious definition of enough is the ultimate act of self-respect, a declaration that you, as you are right now with what you already have, are entirely sufficient. In a world that constantly urges us to speak up, to have an opinion on everything, and to fill every silence with noise, there exists a profoundly countercultural and deeply powerful Stoic practice, the deliberate cultivation of silence and the art of true listening. This framework moves beyond the simplistic idea of not talking and invites us into a practice of immense strength, the strength to be present, to absorb, to understand, and to choose our words with precision and purpose. For women who are so often socialized to be accommodating communicators, this practice is not about becoming quieter. It's about becoming more impactful, transforming communication from a performance into a connection. Think about the typical flow of a conversation, especially a difficult one. Our natural impulse is often to prepare our rebuttal while the other person is still speaking. We are so focused on crafting our next point, defending our position, or ensuring we are heard that we only half listen, waiting for our turn to talk. This reactive mode creates a dynamic of opposition rather than understanding. The Stoic practice of silence and listening shatters this pattern. It asks us to consciously withhold our immediate response, to create a pocket of silence after the other person finishes, and to use that space not to plan but to truly comprehend. This simple pause is a game changer. It signals respect, it allows the full meaning of their words to land, and it gives your own response the benefit of reflection rather than reflex. The power of this practice becomes vividly clear in the heart of a conflict. Imagine a disagreement with your partner where you feel criticized. The initial impression might be a surge of defensiveness, accompanied by a flood of counter-accusations ready to spill out. The disciplined approach is to actively choose silence in that heated moment. You take a breath, you make the conscious decision to listen fully to their concern without interruption, even if every fiber of your being wants to jump in and correct them. This act is not passive, it is an active and courageous form of engagement. By truly hearing them out, you might discover that beneath the criticism is an unmet need or a simple misunderstanding. Your response, when it finally comes, is no longer a defensive missile but a bridge built from understanding. It might sound like, "What I'm hearing you say is that you felt ignored when I was on my phone earlier." Is that right? This reflective listening de-escalates the situation instantly and moves you toward collaborative problem solving instead of entrenched warfare. Beyond conflict, this framework revolutionizes leadership and professional influence. In meetings, the person who speaks least often speaks with the most authority. By resisting the urge to fill the air with your voice and instead listening intently to every contributor, you gain a comprehensive view of the landscape. You notice the unspoken dynamics, the hesitations, the ideas that haven't been fully formed. When you do choose to speak, your contribution is synthesized, insightful, and cuts directly to the heart of the matter. People begin to lean in when you talk because they know your words are not off-the-cuff reactions but considered insights. This cultivates a reputation for wisdom and thoughtfulness, demonstrating that your strength lies not in the volume of your speech but in the weight of your words. Perhaps the most transformative application of this practice is in turning inward toward the noise of our own minds. Our internal dialogue can be a chaotic and critical committee, offering a running commentary of worries, judgments, and to-do lists. The external practice of silence creates the conditions for internal quietude. In the space we create by not speaking, we can finally hear ourselves think. This is where silence becomes a sanctuary for reflection and the foundation of sound decision-making. Before making a significant choice, instead of frantically seeking external opinions, you can gift yourself the simple act of sitting in silence. You allow the pros and cons to arise and settle without immediately latching onto one. You create the mental clarity to distinguish between a fear-based impulse and a values-based intuition. This is how you ensure your decisions are your own, born from your core principles and not from the pressure or noise of the world around you. Ultimately, embracing the power of silence and deep listening is a reclaiming of your energy and your agency. It is the understanding that your attention is one of your most precious resources, and where you place it defines your reality. By choosing to listen more than you speak, you gather invaluable data about the world and the people in it. You build deeper, more authentic relationships because people feel seen and heard in your presence. You make fewer missteps because you act on understanding rather than assumption. And in the quiet spaces you cultivate, you discover a resilient inner voice of wisdom that has been there all along, waiting for the noise to die down so it can finally be heard. This brings us to a framework that invites us to make peace with the very fabric of existence, embracing impermanence. At its core, this principle is about recognizing that change is not an interruption of life, but the very essence of life itself. Everything is in a constant state of flow: our bodies, our careers, our relationships, and even our identities. For women who often navigate profound and visible transitions from career shifts and motherhood to aging and the changing dynamics of family, this Stoic insight offers a way to release the struggle against the current and instead learn to flow with it, finding grace and possibility where we might have only seen loss or uncertainty. Resisting this natural flow is a primary source of our deepest anxieties. We cling to a particular version of our career, a specific phase of our children's lives, or an idea of how our relationship should be, believing that permanence equals security and happiness. But life, by its very nature, is dynamic. When we fight this truth, we experience every ending as a failure and every new beginning as a threat. Embracing impermanence is the conscious decision to drop that fight. It is the understanding that just as we appreciate a beautiful sunset precisely because it is fleeting, we can learn to appreciate the precious, transient beauty of every chapter of our lives precisely because it will not last forever. Consider the universal experience of aging, a transition that carries a particularly heavy weight for women in a culture that often prizes youth above wisdom. The resistance to this change can consume immense mental and emotional energy, fighting gray hairs, lamenting new lines on our faces, and trying to hold onto a version of ourselves that exists only in old photographs. Embracing impermanence asks us to shift our perspective entirely. Instead of seeing aging as a slow process of losing our youth, we can choose to see it as a continual process of gaining. We gain experience, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, we gain the resilience that comes from having weathered storms, and we often gain the freedom to care less about superficial judgments and more about what truly brings us joy. A wrinkle is not a flaw, it is a map of a life lived, of laughter shared, of concerns furrowed in thought. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but by regularly acknowledging the naturalness of this change, we can move from resistance to reverence for the journey itself. This framework is equally powerful for navigating career and personal evolution. The job that defined you for a decade may become obsolete. The passion project that once set your soul on fire may naturally run its course. A close friendship may slowly change form as your lives move in different directions. The pain in these transitions often comes from the story we tell ourselves that something is wrong, that we made a mistake, or that we are losing a part of ourselves. Embracing impermanence allows us to tell a different story. It allows us to see that every ending creates the space for a new beginning that would not have been possible otherwise. Losing a job can force a courageous pivot into a field you truly love. The quieting of an old friendship creates emotional space for new, more aligned connections to enter your life. The key is to learn the art of grieving what was without getting stuck in it, and to practice looking for the new door that every closing window inevitably makes visible. Practically, this begins with a simple but powerful shift in language and self-talk. When faced with an unexpected change, instead of saying, "This shouldn't be happening," we can learn to say, "This is what is happening. How can I move with it?" This tiny linguistic pivot acknowledges reality without judgment, opening the door to adaptive action rather than futile resistance. We can also make it a habit to regularly reflect on the benefits of past changes. Remember a time you feared a change, perhaps a move to a new city or the end of a relationship, that ultimately led to tremendous growth and unexpected happiness. Collecting this evidence reminds your nervous system that while change is uncomfortable, it is also the primary mechanism through which our lives expand and improve. By embracing the truth that nothing is permanent, we free ourselves to fully appreciate the beauty of what is right in front of us, knowing that our ability to adapt and grow is the only true constant we can ever rely on. At the heart of a truly resilient life lies a framework that is often misunderstood, not as the absence of fear, but as the very act of moving forward in its presence, the practice of courage. This is not the Hollywood version of bravery, a grand, fearless charge into battle. For the Stoics and for women navigating the complexities of modern life, courage is something far more accessible and infinitely more practical. It is the daily decision to act in accordance with your deepest values, even when every instinct is pulling you toward safety and silence. It's the understanding that courage is not a character trait you are born with, but a muscle you build through consistent, intentional repetition. This practice is absolutely crucial for women because the risks we so often face are not physical, but social and emotional. The fear is not of a physical threat, but of being labeled as difficult, of facing professional backlash for being assertive, of the profound discomfort that comes with disappointing others or disrupting the status quo. This kind of fear can be incredibly paralyzing because it preys on our deep-seated need for connection and approval. The Stoic practice of courage reframes this entirely. It asks you to shift the metric of success from external acceptance to internal integrity. The goal is not to eliminate the fear, but to make your commitment to your values louder than the voice of the fear itself. Consider the courage required to set a firm boundary with a family member who consistently oversteps. The fear is palpable, the anxiety about causing conflict, the worry that you'll be seen as selfish or uncaring, the dread of the uncomfortable conversation itself. The courageous act is not to wait until that fear disappears because it likely never will. It is to feel that knot in your stomach, to acknowledge the racing heart, and to have the conversation anyway because you know that your long-term peace and self-respect are more important than the short-term discomfort. You are choosing the temporary pain of a difficult conversation over the chronic, soul-eroding pain of resentment. Each time you do this, you are not just solving a problem, you are depositing evidence into your own psychological bank account that you can handle hard things. You are building a track record of trusting yourself. In the professional arena, this practice of courage might look like advocating for a raise or a promotion. The fear of being seen as greedy or arrogant, the terror of rejection, the internalized imposter syndrome that whispers you don't truly deserve it. These are powerful forces that keep so many talented women from claiming their worth. Courage here is meticulous preparation. It's gathering the data on your accomplishments and market value, practicing your talking points, and walking into that room not as someone begging for recognition, but as a professional presenting a clear, evidence-based case for your contribution. The courageous action is the preparation and the presentation itself. The outcome, whether you get the yes or the no, is a separate matter. You have already succeeded by embodying the value of self-advocacy and professional self-respect. Perhaps the most profound expression of this practice is the courage to stand against injustice, whether it's calling out a microaggression in a meeting, supporting a colleague who is being marginalized, or using your voice to champion a cause when it would be easier to stay silent. This form of courage often feels the riskiest because it can involve confronting power structures or social dynamics. The Stoic foundation here is the principle of justice we discussed earlier. Your courage is fueled not by a guarantee of victory, but by the unwavering knowledge that it is the right thing to do. You act because your values demand it, not because you are assured of a particular result. This transforms the action from a desperate gamble into a principled stand. You may not single-handedly change the entire system, but you will have upheld your own integrity and potentially created a ripple of safety and solidarity for others. The beautiful truth is that this kind of courage is contagious. When you act with courage, you give implicit permission for others to do the same. Your act of setting a boundary teaches your children how to honor their own needs. Your professional self-advocacy paves the way for other women on your team. Your willingness to speak up against an injustice makes the entire environment a little braver for everyone. This practice, therefore, is never just for you. It is a contribution to the collective courage of your community, strengthening the web of resilience for all. It is the ultimate proof that the most powerful changes often begin with a single, quiet, trembling act of choosing what is right over what is easy. Cultivating wisdom through dedicated reading offers a powerful and enduring alternative to the fleeting solutions often found in modern self-help trends. While quick-fix articles and motivational podcasts have their place, they frequently address symptoms rather than root causes, leaving us to search for the next temporary boost when a new challenge arises. Engaging deeply with Stoic texts and philosophical works, on the other hand, is like building a timeless toolkit for the soul. It's not about acquiring a simple tip for managing stress, but about fundamentally upgrading your entire operating system for life, developing a robust framework for understanding the world and your place within it that remains relevant across every season and circumstance. For women seeking not just strategies but true depth, the works of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus provide something uniquely valuable: a conversation across centuries with some of history's most resilient minds. Imagine facing a moment of profound betrayal or a staggering professional setback, and being able to open a nearly 2,000-year-old book to find words that speak directly to your pain, offering perspective that is both grounding and elevating. This is the gift of philosophical reading. It connects your personal struggles to a universal human experience, instantly dissolving the isolating feeling that you are alone in your difficulties. You realize that a Roman emperor wrestled with the same anxieties about his legacy. A prominent statesman grappled with the same frustrations of unfairness, and a former slave articulated a path to inner freedom that is just as potent today as it was in the first century. This connection is profoundly empowering, transforming personal hardship from a solitary burden into a shared chapter in the human story. Building a regular reading practice doesn't require hours of isolated study. It can be seamlessly woven into the fabric of a busy life. This might mean starting your day with just 5 minutes of a primary text like Meditations, allowing a single passage to serve as a thematic guide for your thoughts and actions throughout the hours ahead. It could involve listening to an audiobook commentary on Epictetus during your commute, reframing the frustrations of traffic into a practical exercise in managing externals. Even keeping a book of Seneca's letters on your bedside table for a few pages of reflection before sleep can slowly but steadily reorient your mind toward more virtuous and resilient patterns of thinking. The goal is consistent engagement, not rapid consumption, allowing the ideas to marinate and gradually infuse your daily decision-making. The true power of this practice is realized not just in reading but in active application. This is where a simple journal becomes your most valuable tool for integration. After reading a passage that resonates, pause and write down how it applies to a current challenge. For instance, if you read Marcus Aurelius reminding himself that the obstacle is the way, write about a specific obstacle you're facing. How could this difficult person or unexpected delay actually become the path to developing a new skill or practicing unprecedented patience? If Seneca writes about the value of controlling our assumptions, reflect on a recent situation where your initial impression caused unnecessary distress. How could applying this principle change your reaction next time? This process of reading and then personally interrogating the text transforms abstract philosophy into a personalized guidebook, ensuring that wisdom moves from the page into the very core of your being, ready to be deployed when life inevitably tests your resolve. And this brings us to our final and perhaps most encompassing framework, the goal of living in accordance with nature. At first glance, this concept might seem abstract or even unrelated to modern life, perhaps conjuring images of living off the grid or adopting a purely primal existence. But in Stoicism, this principle holds a far more profound and practical meaning. It is the ultimate synthesis of all the other frameworks, inviting us to align our inner world, our thoughts, desires, and actions with the fundamental, rational principles that govern the universe itself. For women seeking a life of genuine harmony over constant friction, this is the master key. It's about rejecting the exhausting mental gymnastics required to contort ourselves into society's contradictory expectations, and instead returning to a simpler, more authentic way of being that is in tune with our own true nature and the nature of reality. To understand this, we first need to explore what the Stoics meant by nature. They observed that the universe operates not on chaos, but on a coherent, intelligent order, a logos. We see this in the predictable changing of the seasons, the laws of physics, and the intricate interdependence of ecosystems. Everything in the natural world has a purpose and functions according to its design. A seed's nature is to grow into a plant, a river's nature is to flow toward the sea. For human beings, our defining feature, our unique nature, is our capacity for reason. We are thinking, social creatures designed to use our rational minds to cooperate, to create, to seek truth, and to act with virtue. Therefore, to live in accordance with nature is to live a life guided by reason and virtue, in community with others, accepting the inherent flow and structure of the world around us. Now consider how often modern life, particularly for women, pushes us directly against this natural state. We are bombarded with societal messages that are fundamentally irrational and unnatural. We are told to prioritize endless consumption on a planet of finite resources. We are sold the idea that our worth is tied to a perpetual state of youth in a world where aging is the most natural process of all. We are encouraged to compete and compare in a universe that thrives on cooperation and symbiosis. We are pressured to maintain a facade of constant busyness and productivity, ignoring our natural need for rest and reflection. This creates a deep, internal dissonance, a feeling that we are constantly swimming against a powerful current, and it is absolutely exhausting. Living in accordance with nature is the decision to stop swimming against that current and to start flowing with it. This practice becomes incredibly tangible in our daily choices. It means using your reason to question the societal shoulds that cause you anxiety. For example, if the nature of a child is to explore, make messes, and learn through play, then living in accordance with nature might mean rejecting the pressure to maintain a perfectly sterile, silent home, and instead creating a space that allows for that healthy, natural chaos. It means recognizing that your own nature requires downtime, and therefore saying no to a social commitment because your rational mind knows you need an evening of rest to be your best self. It's about aligning your consumption with the natural world, choosing to buy less but higher quality, to reduce waste, and to appreciate the resources you have, not because it's a trendy minimalist aesthetic, but because it is a rational and respectful way to inhabit a planet of limited means. On a deeper level, this framework guides us toward our highest purpose, to live a virtuous life. Since our nature is reason, and reason allows us to discern what is good justice, courage, wisdom, and temperance, then our ultimate fulfillment is found in expressing these virtues in everything we do. A knife's purpose is to cut. It is most itself when it is sharp and effective. A woman's purpose is to be virtuous. She is most herself when she is acting with integrity, compassion, and wisdom. This is where you find true harmony. The anxiety of trying to be everything to everyone simply melts away when your single, overarching goal is to act virtuously in each moment. Your focus shifts from "do they like me" to "was I fair", from "did I succeed" to "did I act with courage", from "do I look good" to "did I behave with kindness". This realignment is the most profound form of self-acceptance. You are no longer trying to force yourself into an unnatural mold. You are embracing and expressing the best version of your own rational, social, and virtuous nature. Ultimately, living in accordance with nature is about coming home to yourself. It is the peaceful understanding that you are not a separate entity fighting against the universe, but an integral part of it, designed to contribute your unique thread of reason and virtue to the whole. It is the end of the internal war between who you are and who you think you should be. By choosing to live this way, you trade the brittle, superficial harmony of external approval for the unshakable, deep harmony that comes from knowing your life is aligned with truth, reason, and the very fabric of existence. You find that in embracing your natural self, you have not lost anything of value but have instead gained everything, a profound sense of belonging, purpose, and peace. And so we arrive at the close of our exploration, having journeyed through 25 powerful Stoic frameworks, each one a timeless tool forged not for a life of ease, but for a life of meaning. What becomes undeniably clear is that this ancient philosophy is far from a cold, rigid set of rules for bygone eras. It is a dynamic, living wisdom that speaks directly to the heart of the modern woman's experience. It offers not an escape from the complexities of our world, but a way to navigate them with a profound sense of resilience, unshakable clarity, and deep, purposeful intention. These principles provide a mental and emotional operating system for a reality that often demands everything of us. They empower you to dismantle the habit of taking on burdens that were never yours to carry through the dichotomy of control. They give you the lens to transform obstacles from roadblocks into the very path forward itself. They offer the courage to set boundaries rooted in self-respect rather than resentment, and the wisdom to invest your precious energy not in chasing external validation, but in cultivating an internal integrity that no outside circumstance can ever diminish. This is about building a life where your sense of peace and self-worth is non-negotiable, built on the solid foundation of your own character rather than the shifting sands of external events. The true power of this journey lies in its application. This isn't a philosophy to be simply admired and placed on a shelf. It is a practice to be woven into the very fabric of your daily existence. You don't need to master all 25 frameworks at once. In fact, the most impactful approach is to begin with just one. Choose the single principle that resonated most deeply with you in this moment. Perhaps it's the liberating practice of negative visualization to spark a deeper gratitude for what you already have. Maybe it's the empowering shift of focusing on process over outcomes to liberate yourself from the anxiety of perfectionism. Or it could be the gentle, daily ritual of self-examination to ensure you are living each day with intention. Commit to practicing that one framework for a week. Notice how it changes your perspective, your reactions, and your sense of agency. Then, when you feel ready, slowly layer in another. This is how we build a resilient character, not through grand, sweeping changes, but through the consistent, quiet repetition of small, virtuous choices. I would love to hear about your journey in the comments below. Which framework are you starting with? What shifts are you beginning to notice? Your insights create a beautiful community of learning and support, reminding all of us that we are not alone in striving to live with more wisdom and grace. If this conversation has brought value to your day, if it has offered a new perspective or a moment of clarity, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. This is just the beginning of our exploration into wisdom-driven content designed to empower your life. There is so much more to discuss: deep dives into individual Stoic practices, conversations about applying these tools to specific challenges, and wisdom from other traditions that complement this path. Your subscription helps this community grow and ensures you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for gifting your time and attention here today. May you carry these tools with you, and may they serve as a constant source of strength, guiding you toward a life of purpose, peace, and profound resilience.